So everyone, today I have a very special guest. My kids are fingering. My family is half medical, half entrepreneurs. He's a serial entrepreneur. She's finished, produced, and hosted CNBC's first original primetime series. Then she pitched Michael Dell of Dell Technologies and the president of Dell to be their first entrepreneur in residence. Normally, that will last for 6 months to a year for companies that do this, and they held on to her for 3 years. And then she left to found an international network of female entrepreneurs, empowering a billion women, which connects women to capital resources globally. She was recognized by UN, United Nations, as one of the top global 10 entrepreneurs. And she serves on the UN Foundation, or I'm going to measure the name, one of the foundations. So her, one of the top 100 something. I don't I'm going to call her, fun fact, she and Ray and Shannon went to work together.
Well, Ed Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to introduce Rushton Johnson. Neither Rushton nor I have received any awards or recognition. This is a past member of the Atlantic Rotary Club. He moved here to Knoxville recently. He's an administrator at Mississippi State and looking to get re-engaged in Rotary. We're over here trying to convince him this is a place to get re-engaged. So please stop by and say hi to Rush.
Then we got a Johnson City Noon Rotary Club visitor, Eric Pardue. Welcome. All right, now for announcements, Secretary Shannon. There we go.
Hello, everybody. Okay, happy tax day to all who celebrate. I see we don't have our accountants in residence today. Somebody's working on my taxes. All right, we've got World Rotary Day coming up this Saturday, April 22nd. We're going to be at the Wesley House. We'll be working with other area Rotary clubs from 8:30 a.m. until noon. Contact Kim Eisenberg if you have any questions. No need to register, just show up. Might want to take some work gloves. We've got a festive event coming up, Shrimp Boil. It's Saturday, April 29th at Virginia's home. Virginia, wave, so everybody can see where they're going. All right. Virginia's on the post us, and the first 50 Rotarians are no charge. By the way, we only have 12 spots left with a no charge, but you can bring guests. It's $25 per guest. Best part is you can sign up on the Rotary website and pay right there too. Call Allison if you have any questions about that. Nominations are open, as we've been talking about, for the four-way test Rotarian of the Year. This is your opportunity to nominate someone who's joined within the last 5 years, who's done an excellent job, embodies the four-way test, and has done great service to our club. We've got a deadline coming up. Nominations are due to the Rotary office by Tuesday, April 25th. So next Tuesday, you can do it online, you can do it by hand. You can even fax it if you want to into the Rotary office. If you've got questions, the four-way test committee chair is Mary Ann Mulder. She's waving her hand in the middle table, so just ask her. Don't forget to sign up for the Web School Interact Club fundraiser. That's coming up the day after the Shrimp Boil, so it's a full weekend of fun. That'll be Sunday, April 30th at Joanne Latimer's home. Joanne's waving too. And they are raising money to support, and Liz Greger is highly involved in that as well. But the Interact Club at Web School is raising money through a Mexican fiesta hosted by Joanne. And their money will go to pay for their projects around the world, in Hungary, in India, I think in Zimbabwe as well, right? So around the world. It's $75. It's limited to 40, I believe. And we have, we're over halfway filled. You can register on the calendar on the Rotary website. Okay, fundraising committee. You are meeting today, following today's meeting, and we have Brent Midget, who's going to tell us about our upcoming fundraiser. Brent?
Thank you, Secretary Cameron. We are getting close. We are basically a month away from our big fundraiser. It's our third year of doing it, and I know that a lot of you have been before, but I also realize that a lot of us haven't. So to explain what the night is, it's essentially a Rotarian night at the zoo, where we're going to have a few exhibits open for us. We'll be able to tour the animal or the amphibian reptile center that has won the award recently for being the absolute best zoo exhibit on the planet, basically. And then from there, we'll be able to go down and hang out with the giraffes, and then spend some time with some elephants, and then we're going to eat dinner. And throughout the night, we'll have some entertainment by different circus entertainers, as you might have seen before. There's a giraffe puppet that's floating around the city now. And so it's a whole lot of fun. It's really sort of like a private night at the zoo. Children are welcome. It's not really like a kid-focused event, but we certainly, if you want to bring a kid along, they are certainly invited and welcome. We'll certainly make sure that they have fun at the zoo. Now, the way all this happens is it is sponsorships, and we are doing very good. We are about a third of the way there right now. And I'm glad to report that most of our home run hitters have come in and hit some home runs. But now I'm really looking at some singles and doubles. We really need just participation from a higher percentage of the club. Last year we did a great job. Without doing the math, I don't want to say about 75% of the club was a sponsor at some level. We have a sponsorship that starts at $400. Is that right this year? Yeah, $400 gets you one ticket. It is a donation of then $250 to the charity, to the Rotary Foundation of Knoxville, which is our local foundation, which we do all our charitable events out of. And then the sponsorships go up from there, include 2 tickets, and then go up to 4 tickets. And if you spend a whole bunch of money, we'll give you free booze too. So the sooner you sign up, the closer we'll sit you to the act. We're going to have some trapeze and silks artists or something aerialists like we've had in the past. The earlier you sign up or the higher levels, we get you closer to the act, so you have an easier chance to see it. And it should be a great fun evening all around. Now, to get past, the fun that we'll be having, to remind everybody, we do spend about $50,000 out of this club every single year on our local charity. It just goes straight out. If y'all's money comes in here, we turn around and we give it to Wesley House. We give it to the veterans or the felons that are coming back out with the mainstream committee. We give it to, all the different local community service projects that we've done throughout the past. And let's not forget, we have Abigail Ramsey, Emma Smoker, Linnea Johnson, Reagan Wright, Noah Bruin, Esther McFall, and Logan Crawford, who are all going to college right now with help from y'all. So we are sending children to college. We are helping young children. This is all money that stays here in the community. As we know, it can get matched from above, so it doesn't necessarily always stay $1 for $1. But it certainly helps all our projects here. And if you haven't been called yet, this is the crux of it. If you haven't sponsored, you haven't been called, expect a call. We're about to start hitting it heavy in the next week or two. We do have to have a close for sponsors to make sure you get recognition. We will certainly keep taking sponsors all the way up to the event and then past. But to get recognized on all the stuff, we need to have a cutoff date. So that's coming up probably in about a week or so. So please make an effort. We do have more cards up here. We take your money any which way. There's QR codes. You can tell Allison. She can bill you. We can bill you monthly. We can figure out how to help you donate more money, and we certainly are grateful for all that you do, both with your time and your money helping Rotary. Thank you very much.
That's all the things.
I think you covered everything. Awesome. So yeah, I plan to stop eating about Friday so I can do the shrimp broil and Mexican. It'll be a good weekend. Good weekend coming next week. Let's see. May 19th, May 19th, Friday night. What time does it start?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. There we go. Put it on your calendar. It'll be fun. Now we start Sandy Martin.
Thank you, President Bill. Hello, Rotarians. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Mónica Lebrón and Kat Jones, who are going to speak to us today about NIL. Now, Dr. Lebrón is Deputy AD of Championship Resources at UT, and Kat is in a newly created position of NIL Director, which is name, image, and likeness. Both ladies have extensive experience in the world of college sports, and they both joined the University of Tennessee in 2021. Monica came from Tulane most recently, and she oversaw the My All campaign. Kat came from the University of Central Florida, and she likes Tennessee much better than Florida. So let's get started in our program, which I like to call Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About NIL, but Were Afraid to Ask.
Thank y'all. Thank you so much. Well, I'll just kick us right into NIL. It is kind of the hot button topic. Obviously, if you are a college sports fan, you basically cannot get through any segment, any TV show, any press conference without the words NIL being uttered at some point. I saw a quote actually today where someone finally said, "Stop calling it the Wild Wild West. It's just the West now. This is kind of here. It's going to stay. You know, we might as well stop fighting it or any piece of that. It's really, let's embrace it. Let's do it the right way, and let's push this thing forward because it is the West. This is now the college athletics we're living in, and that's a good thing. And so I hope you guys will also feel the way after I speak and Monica speak as well, and kind of explain how we're really doing this. So first off, let's really kick off with what it is. So if you aren't familiar, NIL does stand for name, image, and likeness. What we're really talking about is something that has been around for years. It is not a new concept. It's just new in the collegiate athletic space. So what we're actually talking about is a legal concept of right of publicity. So think every single athlete, singer, actor, actress you've ever seen really do an endorsement for a product, for a service, for a company, a restaurant, or even their own product or service. That's exactly the world we're living in. And so I'll give you the quick example. We'll obviously break down kind of what we've seen in UT, but think when you see someone, holding a Sprite can, or in a local Weigel's, out there with the milk or any of those pieces. That's the world we're living in. Endorsements of product services, royalties from products. We've got great products if you haven't already seen in this Knoxville market, Ball Shop, Alumni Hall, Orange Mountain Design, that are all benefiting our student athletes with their name, image, and likeness. But really, the question we always kind of get is, how did we get here, right? How did we get to this time that got called the Wild Wild West? Well, quick answers, a bunch of states and a bunch of, lawsuits. It's kind of how we get anywhere, right? Either some type of political pressure or some kind of lawsuit comes into play. And that's basically exactly what happened here. So the NCAA bylaws are really what prohibited student athletes from being compensated for their name, image, and likeness, or allowing that type of work up until July 1st of 2021. So the push came at the state level. You started to see a few years before states start to make state laws that then push the NCAA forward, along with a few very important court cases, the biggest being NCAA versus Alston, that was at the Supreme Court level. Would like to put out that was not an NIL case. It was actually a case involving antitrust, but it does get kind of deemed the NIL case, even though that's not what it was focused on, because it really kind of took a stab at the antitrust aspect of the NCAA and kind of really pushed us into July 1st of 2021, when we say this world really turned on. So what it actually means. These are kind of the rules. So you hear a lot of that language too. There's no rules, there's no rules. I'm here to tell you there are rules because most of my job is enforcing them and explaining them and making sure we're getting it right. So if there were no rules, unfortunately, I would probably wouldn't have a job. So there are rules. So they're pretty simple when you get down to it. It's just we've got to enforce them really at a high level. So 3 quickest ones want to make sure you guys take away is that NIL is not handouts of money by any means. Our student athletes are completing work in some way or the other, and huge amounts of work. Each one of these NIL deals do look different, the deliverables, the length, the type of action that's being taken place, but there is an exchange of services for that money. So that's kind of our first piece. Second one is that NIL deals cannot be used as a recruiting inducement. Some of you might start to smirk at me and go, wait a minute, because you have Twitter. So, but at the end of the day, NCAA bylaws do prohibit it from being a recruiting inducement. And that's where I really tell people we've got to be very, very careful on those. And what is in those contracts, what is in those agreements become even more important to make sure we are educating and doing that right. So basically no NIL deal can say you have to attend the University of Tennessee, and we're making sure those pieces are followed. Last one's the other one you hear a lot, which is no pay for play. And that's probably the biggest one that I think really gets misunderstood in this space, and that no NIL deal to be permissible is tied to athletic performance. Now we're smart, we're seeing this. Now we're not saying by any means that market value cannot be tied to a better athletic performance, right? There's a reason why people want Tom Brady in their ad and not, the guy on the scout team, right? A higher market value does lead to a higher return on investment. So to say that they're completely untied is not the case. We're not saying market value can't raise the level of an NIL deal, but it cannot be tied to athletic performance. And I'll tell one of my favorite stories of how this kind of separates out. So y'all know the Moonshine Mountain Cookie deal. We first got to see it with Alante Taylor. We then got to see it with Cedric Tillman. Super cool deal, super popular deal, super great example of NIL at work. But I'll use Alante's. He had an interception. We, as the public, got a free cookie on Monday, right? That was kind of the first one we saw. And it gave me a perfect example of we as the public got a free cookie, but Alante was going to be paid for his endorsement of Moonshine Mountain Cookie, not for that interception or that action on the field. So Alante was endorsing Moonshine Mountain Cookie, whether or not he was playing on Saturday. And I think that is a perfect example to try to explain the very, very different worlds of pay for play versus an NIL deal. We also do have an Tennessee state law here. Pretty much mirrors the NCAA policy, but it throws in a few things that I always just like to point out. If you're ever wondering, hey, why is that this way? Or why am I seeing this in one state and this in another? We are working on about 28 different state laws. So it's very interesting because you will see an athlete in one state maybe take an action that's different than one allowed here in Tennessee. Biggest ones in ours, we have prohibited categories. So our Tennessee student athletes cannot promote an alcohol product, tobacco, adult entertainment, or gambling. From the person enforcing rules and the institution side, we like those restrictions, right? We don't have a lot of problems because we don't mind that we know we're not seeing them promote, let's say, alcohol out there. It just kind of keeps the world a little cleaner, but that's our side. And I want to fly through pretty quickly so we can get to questions, and obviously, some of you have actually heard this before and know that I can talk for a while. So a lot of things to cover with NIL. I wanted to hit my position because I get a lot of questions. Easiest way, I'm here as a resource. I'm here to help our coaches, our student athletes, our staff with all of their NIL questions, because something that people forget is this is really new to them as well. It's new to our student athletes. I came from a compliance background. I spent years telling people not to do this because it was against NCAA bylaws. And now I spend all my days trying to encourage these actions. So it's a real 180 out there. So we want to make sure our student athletes and our coaches and our staff are very, very comfortable in this space. But we also want to be a huge resource for you guys, the Knoxville community and the national community, because you guys, business owners, local people in the community are the ones getting involved in this space. You guys are the businesses that are using student athletes in promotion. So we want to make sure you guys feel comfortable and also have a resource for your questions. And so that's a huge part of my job that I've really enjoyed. It's just whether it be a local or even a national brand coming forward and saying, hey, how can we use NIL in the right way and really get a great return on investment on the great brand of our student athletes and the wonderful work they're doing. Moving along, what are we doing at UT? So I kind of mentioned, this is the West. This is here. It's not going away. And we're going to embrace it, but we're going to embrace it the right way. And I will be completely honest, that's why I'm here at the University of Tennessee doing this as opposed to somewhere else, because I saw that they had a vision for education when it came to NIL. They weren't going to, put a Band-Aid on it. They weren't going to say, hey, NIL's on. Good luck, student athletes. We wish you the best. They really, really invested in the resources to help our student athletes do this the right way. And one of them, which was a huge resource and undertaking, it was the first of its kind, was an Intro to NIL course. So it's housed in the Haslam College of Business, actually in the Anderson Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So entrepreneurship. I was about to applaud. I was like, please come, because entrepreneurship is a huge push in our NIL world. But we house this class in there, and it's a class that I'm gonna skip ahead, covers all of these items, everything for who these student athletes are, how they develop their brand, how they develop their core values, how they represent themselves as a brand, all the way down to taxes. When I say they've gotten a message from me every day for the past 2 months about taxes, since today is tax day, they are earning income, which means they now file taxes. And for most of them, this is the first time. So that's a huge education, how they budget, how they handle financials, how they take good photos and videos for some of these social media deals. A lot of this is taking place on social media. How do you make a good product that a brand wants to get behind? And how do you interact with your community? Sometimes people forget, because our student athletes do amazing every day. They are incredible. So sometimes we forget that they're 18 to 22. And they are kind of jumping into worlds that I didn't jump into till I was, well into my professional career. And we're asking them to jump into it at 18. And they're doing a killer job, but we need to help them. We need to educate them on the way. And this was one of the reasons I really loved the way Tennessee was going to do it, because we weren't just going to turn on NIL. We weren't just going to let it happen. We were going to really get proactive and educate our student athletes on how to maximize it, and also maximize it safely, right? We're not going to hide it. Financials are real. Taxes are real. I joke with them a lot. The IRS is about the only thing I can't help you with, right? Once they're in that trouble, I probably can't help get them out of it. So we want to take those pieces really, really seriously with them. And then we have a lot of partnerships and a lot of external partners that help us in this space. And then we're always providing resources, like I said, financial literacy, budgeting, taxes, brand building, how to talk to a brand, how to talk to the decision maker. Once again, I've got a 19-year-old who's maybe having a conversation with the national brand's director of marketing, right? Those are pretty big things that we want to bring to the table. Teaching them how to negotiate. That's been one of my favorite pieces, because I think it's a piece a lot of people don't learn how to negotiate till maybe 2 salaries too late, I say. So I want to always tell them, hey, let's learn to negotiate now, and let's not leave something on the table. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. We always want to help them, right? Huge brands here at the University of Tennessee. I will be the first to say Knoxville helps us in this case, and the power of the Power T helps us. The Power of All Nation helps us every day in this. And we really want to help them. How can they bring their individual brands, connect it with the power of Tennessee, and then push it forward? And then I want to dive right into successes, right? This thing's been on for about 21 months. And for some of you that I know have worked with us in this space, it has changed a lot in 21 months. And it is continuing to change. We definitely are not slowing down, but we can confidently say had over 800 deals in those 21 months. And one of my favorite pieces is that is across all of our sports. And it's a pretty even 50-50 split with our male and female student athletes, which is a huge piece that I think we're really proud of. That was a big narrative that rightfully so was a concern. But the power of that Lady Ball brand matches just as hard. So we've seen our women's student athletes be very, very successful in this space as well. And they have been worth well over the $8 million mark at this point. So not only are they learning a lot of skills, we are seeing it be very, very successful for our student athletes and our businesses in this case. And I'll pull through industry trends. This is where it always gets great, because we don't know. I'll be honest, there's a lot of these things people ask me all the time, where does it go? Where does college athletics go in 5 years? And unfortunately, I do not know that answer. But I do know that we are well equipped. Monica went on this to really take on that challenge and continue to evolve with college athletics to make sure that our student athletes are right there and ready to go with any way this does evolve. We are seeing federal legislation get involved and how that may play out. But the biggest piece is with NIL, it's not going away. We're seeing this industry get bigger, and we're seeing it expand at both the local and the national brand level. So it's kind of a very, very fun world to be in for me and the student athletes of, hey, we can really dream big. We love working with local companies, and then we love getting to take this Tennessee brand national as well. So I tell them, if you can think it up, we can probably make it happen with NIL. And I say the same thing to brands as well. If you guys have an idea as a company, doesn't matter what kind of company, we can probably find a way to make that fit into the rules and regulations, which honestly has been a very, very fun world to live in. And then the last one I will leave with, because it's usually where we end up, is how do I get involved in it? Okay, you just told me these things. You explain what NIL is. Where do I go with it? Easiest one, if you've got that thing, hire a student athlete, right? Do you have a business? Is there a way we can plug it in? Let me help, let us connect you with a student athlete. Let's push that forward. It's something that can really help. At the same time, supporting them by buying their products, right? Like I said, a huge part of this is jersey sales, t-shirt sales, gear sale of our student athletes. Youth has been a huge piece in this. I joke with people when we first saw shirts come out with our student athletes on it, they weren't made in youth brands. And I said, whoa, guys, that's the huge market right there, right? And there's something so special for our student athletes to look up in the stands and see little ones with their names on their back and their number. That is not lost on them, the power that they truly are role models to the youth and their community. And we do have groups, kind of collectives, if you want to call them donor groups. We have a lot involved in that space as well that I'd be happy to give y'all that information. We've got a few Lady Ball Booster Club that focuses on our women's student athletes. And then we also have the volunteer club run by Spire Sports that focuses on all. And those are what we're calling donor collectives in this space, but they're groups doing great work to support our student athletes in the NIL space. And that's a great way to get involved as well. And then, like I said, we've got a QR code out. Most of that kind of takes to my info. So like I said, let me be a resource for you as well if you have questions. So I will stop there and hand it over. And then we'll open it.
All right. I will talk no things NIL, because we have our expert in the room, not the expert. I want to be cognizant of time, so I'm going to talk as fast as I possibly can, because to me, Q&A is the best part. So I want to take you back to 2004, the very first time I was in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm from San Jose, California. I played softball at Yale. I've lived all over the United States. My very first time in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was working at the University of Florida. It was my very first taste of the SEC. My very first SEC contest of any kind, any sport, anywhere. If you guys recall, if you guys are real fans, Florida was playing football at Tennessee. It was a night game. I'm pretty sure it's kicked off at 8 o'clock. I'd never seen anything like it. You had all day to prepare. You guys know what I'm talking. So I come in, I do the 8-hour road trip with some other interns, entry level. Again, this is 2004, so it was a long time ago, almost 20 years. I've got my gator gear on because why wouldn't I? We're there. No. So that was scary. Yeah. Walking through the streets of Knoxville, people chomping in your face. It was a scary sight. But Florida's winning the entire game, if you remember. And in fact, the kicker had missed an extra point late in the game. But it comes down to a pretty long field goal. I can't remember. I'm sure one of you guys do 50, 48 yards, 51 yards, something like that. And sure enough, makes it. Tennessee wins the game, and we got to walk back to the car this year. I don't have anything to cover up. I've never been so scared in my life. But what I realized that night, it's now midnight. What I realized that night was that this place was special. I truly had never seen anything like it. And at the time, Tennessee was at the very top. And that's who we look to. As someone who's worked in the industry now for 25 years, you look to the best in the business. And early in my career, we were constantly looking to Tennessee to figure out what the heck are they going to do next? Whether it was fundraising, ticket sales, facilities, uniforms, color. Heck, look at me now. We were constantly looking at Tennessee to see what are they doing next, because then we got a copy. Well, somewhere along the way, we lost that. I went on to work at Cal, Ole Miss, Georgia, Tulane. I've been all over the map. And somewhere along the way, Tennessee had lost that. So fast forward now, I'm at Tulane. It's January 2021. I've known Danny White for 20 years. We overlapped in grad school. He's hired as the AD. I told anyone that would listen, Tennessee's back. I promise you, Tennessee is back. He's one of the best ADs I've ever seen. Tennessee will be the best athletic department in the country. Mark my words. I'm still at Tulane. I'm not even thinking twice about Tennessee. I'm still at Tulane. So now the UCF AD job's open, and I get a call. Do you want to interview for the AD job at UCF? Of course I do. My first phone call, Danny White. Danny White had just vacated that job. I said, Danny, how do I get your old job? So about a 15-minute conversation. He's walking me through what I need to do to prepare for the interview. And at the end of the call, he says, if you don't get it, would you want to come to Tennessee? I said, well, I've wanted to be an AD my whole life. So I really want this job, but if I don't, I'll give you a shout back. Well, the process went pretty fast because, as you know, Danny not only came by himself, he brought Josh Heupel with him. So UCF had to hire an AD and a football coach quickly. The entire process was a week long. I remember it. It was Monday, February 8th, about 10 a.m. I get a call that I'm not the next AD at UCF. My first phone call is my mother. My second phone call is Danny White. When do I start? By Wednesday the 10th, and literally my first day was Thursday, February 11th. And for the last 2 years, we've been trying to get Tennessee back to that best market. What does that mean? How is that tangible? Best means that every single unit is operating at optimal level. Is it the softball program? Is it the marketing department? Are we selling the most tickets? Is it NIL? Are we the first to hire a director of NIL? Whatever it is, Danny White constantly strives to be the best. And I knew that with his vision, we were going to get there. And why wouldn't I want to be a part of that? Why wouldn't I want to be one of the architects that helps us get back there? And I think the reason I knew, again, I saw Foundation with my own eyes in 2004. And I knew that you need a fan base like what we have in this room today in order to sell over 70,000 season tickets. If you haven't heard, that's where we're at right now. I think I heard yesterday we have 221 season tickets left that we can sell, and they're in the party deck if you want to call me. It's crazy, but if you were here in 2004, you know it's not. Because with the right fan base and the right leadership and everyone pulling in the right direction, we have the ability to get there, and you're seeing it. And please don't think for a second that we're there yet. Don't think that for 1 second beating Alabama is the top. That was special, and I promise you, I will never forget that night. But that should just be one of many. We're trying to win national championships, which we have 2 individuals already this year in swim and track. We're trying to be the best in everything we do. And we need your help. We appreciate the help that you've already provided us through the My All campaign. And My All means whatever it means to you. It can mean anything. It could be buying that season ticket. It could be wearing your orange. It could be wearing that hat at the grocery store. It could be joining the shareholder society. Whatever that means to you, we all need to be in it together, because that's how we're going to reach that's how we're going to reach the best. That's how we're going to go back to what it was that I saw in 2004, which Tennessee was constantly leading the way. And that's what we're striving for. So thank you for everything you do for us. Continue to support us, and go Vols. Any questions? Yes.
How are y'all seeing it affect teams like a football team where there are going to be players who are getting great deals and those are not at all? And how is that affecting teams and how they?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. That was a huge concern, right? Oh, repeat the question. Sorry. So the question is, how does NIL and SBC deals, especially individual deals, how does that affect the team dynamic? Basically, how's it going to affect the locker room? Huge concern. When we were hypothetically out problems back in 2021, that was up there, right? And what I want to always go back to is culture is so important. I know that's the buzzword of college athletics for the past 3 years, is you've got to build a good culture, which you do. And culture is so important. And thankfully here at Tennessee, we have a great culture. But what I remind people is that things like a teammate jealousy is kind of already existed, because playing time's always been interesting, right? All of those dynamics have already been at play, and we have found ways to still make teams, right, work together. So NIL is another hurdle, like let's say playing time, that we're still gonna have to figure out how to work together. What I've seen, team deals help all the time. Also, it's, hey, if we're gonna go out, the whole softball team's gonna go do this youth event. They're gonna make some money while they're there, but they're gonna do it as a team. And then you're seeing it individuals go hustle for some of those other deals. And I've seen teammates support that hustle, right? And then go support them. So we're seeing a way more cohesive, but obviously a concern. And we still tell people, keep that on your mind, right? Keep how your actions are affecting your team on your mind and be about the team first. But a great example is always gonna be a quarterback and an O-line, right? Your quarterback's always number one on any professional team. He's gonna be your highest endorsement. He's gonna probably be your highest paid. But if we remember, we watch a lot of pro quarterbacks take care of their O-line. We're seeing that in NIL. We're seeing quarterbacks say, okay, I'm gonna bring my O-line with me into this deal, or I'm gonna make sure that, you know, if I'm getting free food, they're getting free food. So some of our players are kind of smarting up earlier too. So first base answer, culture is gonna remain important. You always have to be about the team, because being about just yourself is never gonna work on a team. But it is an extra issue they've got to be aware of. So see one thing here.
So on the topic of branding, aren't we happy that we didn't let Nike and a previous AD and their attempts to get rid of the Lady Ball brand stick?
I'll speak to the NIL side. I was not here for that, but I have been told many a time of it. All I can speak to is that Lady Ball brand is one of the coolest in the country, along with the Power T. I have a marketing background, and I go back to my textbook days where we probably would have said, hey, that's never going to work. I got to experience firsthand how much it does work. If y'all have not been to Orange Mountain Designs, that is a store that only carries the Lady Ball logo. It is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in college athletics. And we're seeing it work out really, really well in NIL. I'm going to pass that up. An administrator's got an answer there too.
And I think what I've noticed, of course, I knew the Lady Ball brand. I've played sports my entire life, played organized sports starting at the age of 5. I've known the Lady Ball brand so long, again, growing up in San Jose, California, because of pets. And I did play basketball as well. And just, again, you want to be a part of the best. If you're competitive and you strive for greatness, you want to be a part of the best. And the Lady Ball brand was the best. So it's super powerful. I hear it now when alums come back and the pride that they speak with about being able to wear that brand it's easy to understand how special it is. So it's here as long as we're here.
Lot better for women's sport. In other words, if we have basketball players on our team who are making more money than basketball players in the
That's a great point that you kind of came, you saw it get voiced during this NBA draft, right? This, I think, was one of the most viewed, runs in the postseason for women's basketball in the collegiate space, rightfully so. It was a very exciting postseason. But we started to hear that voice from current student athletes that they are being successful in the NIL space by elevating their brand. And it's making them stick around for that extra year, right? So it's hard to speak numbers because we are talking about private contracts, but I know some current athletes who have voiced that, hey, I've got a chance to actually make good brand money here as opposed to going to the WNBA maybe early. So yeah, definitely a huge counter in this industry. There.
I've got a few questions. One, this has to be, the contract has to be complicated. I know you're teaching classes. Kids are not contract all the time. Is there a model contract that you want them to use? How do you protect them from that? And then also, how do you protect the business owner? Like if I own a hospital-based company and I want to, hire a student athlete to promote my brand and then they need to go, Cal Berkeley, they're not going to be able to do that. So that's a two-way street. And I know the rules say you can't be contingent on them being here, but from an investor standpoint, like it would have to be contingent on being here. So how do you make those two things?
Yeah, I'll answer the first piece of that question. And the short answer is we're seeing durations look different in contracts. We're seeing everything from maybe a one-time deal of, hey, we're going to do this once to maybe only 6 months. We haven't quite seen super long contracts, I think, for exactly that concern. And that's totally fine, right? Maybe as a business owner, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to do a 6 month, even a 3 month, as opposed to a 2 year. I think it will get interesting the more this grows into those longer contracts. On the education, obviously we're trying to educate, but you are 100% correct. Some of these are the 40-page contracts. That is when we try to help both from a resource side. I do have a law background that we're at least able to make sure they are aware of what are in contracts. We do not represent them. We cannot represent them. but I want to make sure they understand what they are signing. And that's been a huge piece of this. But some of them do have agents. They are allowed to have agents in this space. That's become a big player as well, good agents that can protect them in that space. But a model contract is actually one that has been discussed at the federal level. We'll see if that ever comes to be. I think the difficulty is we are dealing with everything from a free meal to a 5-6 figure contract with all kinds of different industries and variables in there. So I think that may be the hardest piece, but biggest one I always tell them, please, please, please do not sign something without fully understanding what you are signing. That is one of our first biggest hurdles that I am very honest with them and want to make sure we don't do that.
What type of support are you offering here?
Are you speaking directly to NIL?
The NIL
Yeah.
support everything.
100%. Same thing. I want to be a resource for the parents. Biggest place we usually plug those parents in is, hey, we're going to do a tax. Do you want to be zoomed in, right? Do you want to be aware of that tax piece? That's probably the one I get the most with the parents, but I do talk to numerous parents to make sure, one, they're comfortable, make sure they understand the rules and regulations, because a lot of times some deals are coming from personal connections, right? So I talk to a lot of parents in the space, but what we've done, I'd say like boots on the ground, is if we're doing a big team session on let's say taxes, we may zoom in the parents as well if they'd like to be involved so they can understand. Some of these kids are filing as dependents, some aren't. And so they may actually be included still on their parents' taxes. So we want to continue to give them education as well on it. So that's been a huge piece of this.
And is there any obligation or formal connection with the university and the student making the deal?
Can you expand a little bit on?
In other words, can you're telling what you advise the student to do is your advisory position obligatory in any way?
So I think what you're saying, so I cannot obviously act as their attorney or their CPA. We come at it from a very educational standpoint. We want to provide them as many educational resources that they can take advantage of. And so that's where that piece is coming from. And some of that actually is dictated by state law. We do have some financial literacy requirements built into our state law, which I think is fantastic. I think schools should be required to make sure we are educating them on these financial literacy specifically. So some of that's built in. Some of it, like I said, was Tennessee making sure, hey, we're going to be proactive and we're going to really push forward and we're going to put them in the best position possible. But also to the same side, if we've got a student athlete that's not maybe interested in NIL, by no means am I going to force it on them. You know, I want them to be excited. I want them to come forward. I want them to be involved at whatever length they'd like to be.
Are you involved in the connection?
Oh, we can be involved in the connection. Let's say you came to me and said, hey, I'm looking to talk to X student athlete. As long as that student athlete gives consent for me to connect you to, then we can connect. From there, we step back, and that is now then an agreement between two private third parties. So we can kind of serve as that connection. It's a little more safe, makes every party feel a little bit better when I'm like, hey, this is a real person, not a robot or something, right? That's out to get there. Yeah.
Voluntary connection.
Yes, it would be if the student athlete's interested in that deal. Yeah.
One quick question. I know some man is so important to that. 18, 19-year-old kids or young men. How do you all school them on their time management? I know when I was 18, if I go out and make $100 a day, study, I definitely would make money out of it. I wouldn't say how you manage.
It's a hurdle, and it's actually a huge. We do about 2 sessions on it in the class because it's hard for them to, especially think that freshmen. And that's where we sometimes tell them, let's maybe ease into NIL. Let's maybe start small and figure out how to manage your time. You go back to when you were a college freshman. That's a lot, right? And you're coming in, let's say spring semester as a football player, and you're coming all the way in. We kind of sometimes say, hey, get adjusted, then let's maybe dive into deeper NIL. So that's a piece of it, but then they've got to grow up a little bit and make those smart choices for themselves.
I think I know it's too new yet.
And my one piece to that is I remind them all the time, if they're not academically eligible, You also are not athletically eligible. And so that does still, student, I say we have 3 full-time jobs. I tell them sometimes you are a student, you are an athlete, and then you are a brand completing NIL at the same time. And maybe that one needs to stay third, because student still needs to be our focus.
We're kind of a little over. You have a quick question? Yeah.
Are there any brands that are excluded?
So, our prohibited categories are the only one that I would say legally we can kind of enforce, that the alcohol, tobacco, adult entertainment, and gambling. Those are the ones that are dictated by Tennessee state law. Outside of that, there really are not. I always usually get the question, on like, let's say something like a firearm company. And that's when we have really personal connection with our student athletes, and we want to make sure that they represent brands that are true to them. You know, if I've got a kid who's a hunter in East Tennessee, maybe a hunting brand is okay for him, but if you've maybe got, a California girl, maybe hunting's not, you know, her match. You may be a hunter. But those are the pieces too, but we are protected by state law on some of them. Outside of that's when we try to make sure they're just making the best choices, for their brands moving forward.
Thank you. Obviously, they'll be here with any additional questions you may have, but we'll get everybody out of here. So it is a tradition to donate a book on behalf of our speaker. Please go to East Knox County Elementary School. Sign them, we will donate them on your behalf.